Class, the purpose of today's video is to introduce you a little bit more to using articles from the library database and some of the things that you'll find there, and then more specifically to talk about the article that you used for assignment 10, non-cognitive predictors of student success in college, and we're going to use that article to talk about the different features you might find in a scholarly article in general. So we'll start with the article. The link that I gave you is where the article is linked to on our library database. Right, the name of the database is Gale Academic One File. If you were doing a search on our library of the databases, that's one of the database names, and you would search your topic inside that, and maybe it came up with this article. Okay, so here's what the article looks like on the library database. It gives you all the pertinent information here at the top, the author's names, the date the article was published, where it was published. It was published in the College Student Journal, and the College Student Journal is published by Project Innovation. Okay, it tells you about the document type and the length of the document. So those are just some features to look for. Once you find an article, you can do a lot of different things with it. You can print it, you can download it, which is what I did, and you can see that in a minute. You can email it to yourself, you can save it to your OneDrive, or you can save it to your Google Drive. It's a good idea if you find an article that you like to somehow save it for yourself so that you can find it again. Sometimes it's not so easy to find an article that you have already found on a database. Another feature is that a lot of the databases offer a citation service. So for my Works Cited page, I can just click that Cite button. Here is the citation in MLA style. Okay, usually these citations get you about 99% there to a perfect citation. One thing that's often different is that if the journal did not capitalize the title appropriately, then it won't be capitalized appropriately here. And MLA style does say to use appropriate title caps. All right, so this one I could cite it in MLA, in APA, or in Chicago style, and I can pick which citation style I want. Then I can even export it into my Google Drive or my OneDrive, or to EasyBib, so that I can start gathering my Works Cited page together. All right, so let's talk now more specifically about this article. So I like to read on paper, and I like to be able to highlight and annotate on paper. So I printed this article out on my printer at home, and then I wrote my citations here, and I scanned it in using my phone. If you didn't know, you can use the Notes feature on your phone to scan documents. So I want to talk about this article a little bit and use it as an example of what you'll find in a typical journal article or a scientific study article. So usually it will start, this one is not labeled, and often it's not labeled in an article, but it starts with an abstract. An abstract gives you some background on why they did their study. You could think of it kind of as a summary, but it does have more background information about the why they did what they did. So you can see for this one, they start with the why they did this study, because they found out that almost half of the people who enroll in college don't end up graduating. All right, then they give some other background and about why they did this study, because traditional predictors of student success are not great at actually predicting the success. And then they kind of give their idea of what they're going to be researching. Okay, this research explored potential effects of emotional intelligence on a student's ability to persist and graduate. All right, so after the abstract, that's when they're going to get into what they're going to be talking about in the article. Usually the first thing is that they do some kind of literature review. It might be labeled and called a literature review, or it might just talk about the research that they have done before they've done their study. So this one talks about student retention models and theories, okay, because they were talking about here's what other people have said about student success beforehand. So they give a number of different scholars who have written about this. There's Tinto. There's Tinto, Aston, and Bean and Eaton, all people who have different theories on student success. So they've kind of summarized all those things. And then they have another section where they're talking about emotional intelligence specifically. Again, some of the research they did. Oddly enough, this article has this repeating paragraph here. So I just kind of crossed that out on mine. So they're talking about student success. All right, then after that literature review section, usually they're going to tell you about the research design. Depending on what you're going to be using the article for, it might not matter to you so much about their research design, and it may be too technical for you to understand. This one is a relatively simple kind of study, so you can see who it's of, that they used college students, and they gave them this emotional intelligence study, or emotional intelligence survey, I should say, kind of a test. Talked about who the participants were, and then the procedures, what exactly they did. Then they analyzed the data. All right, generally speaking, unless you're in a science class that's really asking you to look at how a study was conducted, then you don't really need to read that over that part. Maybe you can just skim through that part. All right, particularly for an English paper, the information that you want is either in the literature review, maybe in the abstract, or you're going to find it here in the results section. Actually, here the results section, I should say, is too technical. This is all the mathy stuff. We don't want that. So I'm sorry. Where you want to look is in the introduction, the literature review, and the conclusion. All right. This is where they kind of put it in layman's terms, what exactly it is that they found. Right. So what they found here is that pretty much only white girls, all right, white females who don't date are the most likely to graduate. They found out about first-generation students, that it often takes them longer to graduate. And they found which emotional intelligence quadrants are the best predictors of student success. So that's this section is really important to you, and where you might find quotes for a research paper. At the end, they often talk about limitations, problems they saw with this particular study, or with any study being done. And then the last thing is recommendations for policy or practice. All right. This is another place where you might find information you would need for a paper, particularly if you're doing some kind of paper where you need to propose some kind of solutions. Then this is some place where you might want to look. They're saying, here's some different things people could do to help with the problem of college success. So this would be a good place for information. Also, is to look at the recommendations for policy or practice. Again, you need to think about what is your purpose for reading the article, and based on your purpose, think about what it is you need to find in the article. Where might be the best areas of the article for you to look to get the information you need. All right. Don't be intimidated by an article that seems like, oh my gosh, it's 30 pages, 60 pages. You don't need to read all of those pages. A lot of that is going to be about the procedure. You can only read, the beginning, the abstract, the literature review, and the conclusion, and probably get what you need from the article. Again, depending on what class it's for. Also, don't ignore the reference section. All right, this is like the works cited page for the article. If this is a topic that you're studying, college success, maybe any of these articles would be good for you to use in your paper as well. So if one sounds particularly interesting, you can find out the information and then go to our library databases and try to find that particular article that you could use also for your support. Another thing is if you're doing a topic and you want to become expert at it, you need to know who the researchers or scholars in that field are. So he talked about Bean and Aston, and so, or Eaton, I should say. So we see these are people and articles cited here. He talked, I know I saw a few from Betsy Barefoot. So the people, it went too much. So then you start to know these are the experts in that field, and you'll probably start seeing their names repeated in a number of the different articles that you read. Then that's when you know who the real scholars are for your topic. All right, I think that's it. Hopefully this gave you a good introduction on how to read and use scholarly resources and a little bit to the library database. Bye-bye.